Okay. So hi guys. So it's April 8 right now. So it's a Wednesday and afternoon mga 1 p.m. and I'm thinking about you guys. So andito na tayo sa next topic natin. So we're done with acute myelogenous leukemia. We're done with acute lymphatic leukemia or lymphoid leukemia. So dito na tayo sa chronic stages. So can I just say that um pero naman ako magdi-discuss na naman mag-isa ko guys, kausap ko naman sarili ko. So I hope that you're watching the previous videos. Dito na tayo sa chronic side of myeloproliferative and chronic lymphoproliferative disorders. So ayun, ano rin to, mga malignancies and neoplasms, but they are on the chronic side. Can I just emphasize some acute natin? Kasi class, di ba, ang rami. So, sa AML, gusto ko i-memorize nyo yung FAB classification. And sa FAB, ano yung katulad niyang sa WHO classification, ha? Ganyan na lang. But meron akong yung ATRA doon. Yan, sure, tatanong ko yan. So, ayun. So, yan. Focus kayo sa FAB tapos related with your WHO classification. Yan. Yung ALL, may kli lang naman siya. So, di ba, sinabi ko that ALL, when it comes to Philadelphia chromosome, has bad prognosis. But in CML, it has better prognosis. So, CML, guys, is under chronic myeloproliferative. Basta, alam nyo na eh. Okay. So, when we talk about chronic myeloproliferative disorders, doon tayo sa may common myeloid progenitor. Magdaro tayo para sa inyo. Yan. So, dito tayo sa line na to. So, ano ba yung mga nasa line na to? So, yung mga thrombocytes. So, starting from here. Yan. So, we're talking about common myeloid chronic myeloproliferative disorder. So under that, so para-parehong ano yan. So chronic, we expect not blast cells, guys, but more on mature cells. But take note, these mature cells are functionally incompetent. So ibig sabihin, they do not function to the designated abilities. They do not function to their designated abilities. Say example, there are lots of mature megakaryocytes. However, it does not have the capacity to form a coagulation well. And actually, thrombosis at saka bleeding yung mga result nito. So example, so we have essential thrombocytosis. So sa essential thrombocytosis class, mataas ang thrombocytes. Under chronic myeloproliferative disorders, mataas lahat, but predominantly thrombocytes. Pag essential thrombocytosis or primary thrombocytosis class, pag polycythemia vera, increase ang erythrocytes. So that's under your CMD as well. Pag mataas ang neutrophils, in case of your chronic myeloid leukemia. Ayan. So, yun, meron tayong apat. At primary myelofibrosis, yun yung i-discuss natin today. So class, when we talk about chronic lymphoproliferative disorders, ito naman tayo dito sa may common lymphoid progenitor line. So it can affect specifically your T cells, your B cells. Class, note that your B cells can differentiate into your plasma cell, and it's the one that produces your antibodies. So yan, diba hematopoiesis yan? Yes, PowerPoint, next na tayo. Okay, so for your chronic myeloproliferative disorder, or neoplasms, So under that, we have 4. So chronic myelogenous leukemia. So all stem lines are increased. Specifically your neutrophils. Actually, we also have chronic neutrophilic leukemia and chronic eosinophilic leukemia. So increase dyan ang neutrophil, increase din ang eosinophil. Polycythemia vera. So your red blood cells are very much increased, pero let's expect that all cells are increased. And class myelofibrosis or agnogenic myeloid metaplasia. Sobrang lumang pangalan na yan. And primary or essential thrombocythemia. Okay. So your chronic myeloproliferative ayoko nang sabihin yan. So, these are its characteristics. So, first one, it affects your adults to your elderly. So, these are the sickness of old people. Class ALL, naalala nyo, di ba? For it's common among children or elderly. AML, elderly. So, yun ha. Next, for chronic myeloproliferative disorders, all cells are affected, but one cell dominates. So if it's essential thrombocythemia, so increase ang thrombocytes. Next, so it's a proliferative disorder. So expect guys a rapid cell turnover. What does that mean? So it means that there is increased development of cells. So your cells are beginning to develop to your cell increased production of cells and increased cell death. Yan. Not actually development but its production, increased production, and increased death. Rapid cell turnover. So, maraming nabubuhay na cells, maraming namamatay. At anong impact nun, guys? So, once nucleus is disintegrated, it will produce purines. Purines are your nitrogenous bases from your DNA. So purines yan, these purines will form a metabolic waste which is uric acid. So expect na every time na nasisira ang cells, it will release purines, and it will be reduced into a blood uric acid. So expect na mataas ang uric acid ng may mga CMD. So yung may mga polycythemia vera kasi maraming nabubuong cell. So increased number of cells and increased cell death. So it results to the release of purines which will become uric acid. So expect na ang pasyente may gout, pwedeng magkaroon ng gout. Pwede rin tong uric acid na to, it can form a calculi, pwedeng bato sa kidneys. Diba? Galing no? Yes. Diba, na-rate na natin yung sa may CC1, yung uric acid, dahil sa rapid cell turnover. What else, class? Lactate dehydrogenase due to excess lysis of your cells. Next, all 4 may develop into AML. So, once the blasts will increase in number, all 4 can develop into AML. Mamaya, let's talk about that. Next, the bone marrow is hypercellular. So, parang sa mga acute leukemia, and splenomegaly and hepatomegaly. So your cells, your neoplasms, itong mga cancer cells na to, they migrate on the sites of the spleen and liver. What else? Extramedullary hematopoiesis. Ibig sabihin, hindi kontento na sa bone marrow lang nagpro-produce ng blood cells. So there's also production in the spleen and the liver. So expect that it will become big. Yeah. So first off tayo, it's a chronic myelogenous leukemia. So let's break it down and I place it on the slide for you. So chronic, so ibig sabihin, so your chronic, it takes a long time to happen. So the cells tends to be mature. more mature and it affects adults. So, mga matatanda dito. Next, myelogenous. It affects the myeloid stem cell lines. So, expect increased neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils, and monocytes. Naintindihan? Ano nga, myelogenous eh. And leukemia, so same. Malignancy from the uncontrolled proliferation of abnormal pluripotent stem cell. Yeah. Uncontrolled proliferation of abnormal cells or cancer cells. So, can we just have a review? So, class, ang normal value natin ng immature blasts or immature cells is only 1 to 2%. So, if your blast cells will reach up to 5 to 20%, it can be myelodysplastic syndrome. And if it's more than 20%, it's AML and AML and ALL. But class, if it's less than 10% and increased number of mature cells, it can be CML. Again, less than 10% siya because many of the cells has matured. But we have a caveat here that though cells are many and they mature, they are still functionally incompetent. Ibig sabihin, they do not function normally. Yan. So class, Philadelphia chromosome, yung Philadelphia chromosome, it is very centered in CML. Yan. So most of your Philadelphia chromosome is actually a hallmark of CML. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng pasyente na may CML ay may Philadelphia chromosome. Yan. Pero hindi lahat ng Philadelphia chromosome, may chromosome na Philadelphia ay may CML, pwede ring ALL. Pero guys, lahat ng pasyente na may CML, they all have Philadelphia chromosome. And in CML, it is a good prognosis. So let's just have a review. So Philadelphia chromosome is formed upon the translocation of chromosome 9 and chromosome 22. What does that mean? So yung chromosome 9 natin, guys, meron tayong ABL gene. Yan, iba narinig ko, ABL gene. Yan, ito po siya. And itong chromosome 22 natin, may BCR gene. Apparently, there is a transfusion. Yan, a part of your chromosome 9 will go to your chromosome 22. So now we will form a BCR ABL gene or Philadelphia chromosome. So guys, we made a new gene. Yan. And this gene now will make abnormal proteins which will result to CML. Yan. So BCR-ABL is a oncogene, a gene which produces cancer. Ba? So wag naman sana. But guys, if you have the Philadelphia chromosome, it's a better prognosis. Yan. So, the clinical features. So, mababasa nyo, ewan ko nasa notes nyo, but I'm reading it. Sabi niya, ang CML class, it's insidious or deceiving, it's wise. Parang sneaky siya, kumbaga. And what we're going to expect is the enlargement of the spleen, the liver, and bone pain. So, bone pain, diba, it happens when there is excess infiltration of cancer cells inside your bone marrow, and eventually it will hit or it will touch the nerve endings of the bone, which result to pain. Common class sa mga cancer ang bone pain. And biochemical abnormalities. So, increase BUA and LDH. Yan. So, I summarize the CML laboratory findings. So, una, syempre, ang doktor, titingnan nyo muna yung CBC. Plus, nakakaloka. Tingnan nyo, WBC count, it can reach up to 50 to 600 times 10 raised to 9 per liter. Hindi ba? Diba? Ang normal lang is 5 to 10 raised to 9 per liter. Yan. Differential count. Expect the basophilia. Actually, hindi na ako nakakita ng basophilia. So, expect increased amount of basophil, eosinophil, and monocytes. Decreased number of red blood cells. And increased number of platelets at first. in the early stages, then it will decrease in the late stages. Why? Because the abnormal cells has outgrown your platelets, and your WBCs has outgrown your platelets and your red blood cells. So at first random ang red blood cells increase, pero eventually magdi-decrease na rin siya. Next, bone marrow biopsy. So, na-weird nun yung doktor. Now, mag-order siya ng bone marrow biopsy. And, even a CML patient, expect niya it's hypercellular. So, ang raming cells sa loob ng bone marrow and decreased number of blasts. It's only about 10% of blasts, and there are the evidence of maturation. Ibig sabihin, there are mature cells in the bone marrow. And after the bone marrow biopsy, they used PCR or FISH fluorescence in situ hybridization and found out there is Philadelphia chromosome. Yan. So, malaking na yan, evidence na CML. And class, hindi lang yon, nagpa-cytochemical stain pa siya. Class, lumalabas to sa board exam. Class, we can differentiate if it's a leukemoid reaction or CML through leukocyte alkaline phosphatase score, LAP score, yan, or LAP test. So, nakaka-spelling ko. So, increased score shows that neutrophil have underground normal growth. So, ang mga neutrophils na normal, it should have a high LAP score. So, ang normal value class is 20 to 100. So, if it's less than 20, mababa, so the stainings, so, ang nakikita kong sa mga sample questions, it has 5 stainings, 1, 2, 1 plus, 2 plus, 3 plus, 4 plus, and 5 plus. So, in each 1 to 5, may scores yan. And you can add it all, or you can just look at it one by one. So if it's less than 20, it's very low, it's CML. Kasi class, the neutrophils did not undergo normal growth, so they do not release leukocyte alkaline phosphatase. But class, in leukemoid reaction, ibig sabihin, increased neutrophils due to infection. So the result is increased. So more than 100 or within the normal value, mataas siya, mga 90, ganun. It's a leukemoid reaction or leukocytosis. Yan, ha? So you can use LAP scores, which should be less than 20. So my Philadelphia chromosome, less than 10% blast. And the CBC show increased differential count, increased WBC, decreased red blood cell and platelet in the later stages. Okay. We're finished with number 1. Number 2 na tayo, class. So, polycythemia vera or primary polycythemia. So, I trust na hindi nyo first time narinig to. So, yes, increase ang red blood cell. There is pancytosis or panmyelosis. Yan, nabura yung myelosis. And we have hypercellular bone marrow. So, pare-pareho yan, ha? Sa lahat ng mga CMD natin. Yan, isa-isahin natin yung mga laboratory findings. So, first one, increase red blood cell count. Okay. Lagyan natin na stamp na check. Yan. Next, increase hematocrit. Okay. So, hematocrit is also known as packed cell volume. So, here, notice, yung normal natin, ang hematocrit, it should be about 45%. But notice here, in a case of polycythemia vera, yan, kasi ang taas nitong packed cell volume ito. Yan. So, expect that it should, yan, mataas ang hematocrit, mataas ang red blood cell. So, what else? Increase hemoglobin. Next, increase LAP because of high WBC count. So, notice, kung i-differentiate natin sa CML, mataas ang LAP niya kasi normal ang WBCs. It has matured well. Next, increase platelet count and basophils. However, guys, ito ang gusto kong tandaan nyo. Decrease EPO level. Why? Because of negative feedback. Negative feedback. Since mataas na ang red blood cell, the EPO tends to decrease. Yan. Due to negative feedback mechanism, since mataas ang red blood cell, your red blood cell will pass to your kidneys. Isn't it? Your EPO, your erythropoietin is produced by the peritubular cells. So, pag na-detect ng peritubular cells na mataas naman ang red blood cell natin, it will not produce erythropoietin anymore. And guys, polycythemia is a mutation caused by JAK2, Janus, Janus kinase, V617F. Yan. Pakipalitan sa handout nyo. Hindi B6, it's a V617F. So here, this mutation affects your polycythemia vera, essential thrombocythemia, and primary myelofibrosis. Itong mutation na to, class. So, yeah. Next tayo na slide. So class, this JAK2 V617 mutation, so this is found in your chromosome. And this gene, guys, will produce Janus kinase 2, Janus JAK2 kinase. So this is an enzyme, Janus adenine kinase. JAK2, basta class, JAK2 kinase. So this is an enzyme. Apparently, guys, itong enzyme na to, it stimulates the receptors of erythropoietin. So the receptors of erythropoietin are actually found in your bone marrow. So sinistimulate niya na, go, mag-produce ka. Dapat, EPO receptor should be stimulated by erythropoietin. But apparently, since we have this enzyme, it will stimulate erythropoietin production. Erythropoietin. So, kala nang magre-receive, kala ito yung receptor ng receptor in the bone marrow. So, your Janus kinase will attach to the receptor and it will now activate the receptor to produce more red blood cells, which will in turn increase cell turnover. So, increase na yung production, increase na yung death. So, that's what happened to your polycythemia vera. So, take note that decrease ang EPO due to negative feedback. So, now, we will classify your polycythemia vera through this flow chart, sabihin na natin. So, in polycythemia vera, expect high red cell mass, yan, increase hematocrit, increase hemoglobin. And now, we will differentiate if it's an absolute polycythemia vera or if it's a relative. Pag sinabi nating absolute, there is really increased amount of red blood cell. Itong relative, kumbaga, pseudo-increase lang ito, mga kapatid. Pseudo-increase, why? Number one cause is decreased plasma volume. Nagmukhang marami yung red cell mass natin or packed cell volume, yung packed cell red cell volume natin because kumonti lang yung plasma volume. Kailan to nangyayari? In cases of dehydration, nagmukhang marami. So, severe burns because you have lost fluids, vomiting, Gay-Box syndrome. Parang Gay-Box syndrome is an old name of HIV. Yan. Number increase in red cell mass and increase EPO. Yan, mataas. No increase in red cell mass and EPO. Okay. So, yun, relative lang due to decreased plasma volume. Next, absolute. Talagang may increase, hindi pseudo-increase. There is absolute increase of your red blood cell mass. Class, if it's a primary polycythemia vera, that's what I'm discussing, expect a decreased EPO, erythropoietin. And if it's a secondary polycythemia vera, the EPO is increased. Yan. Kasi due to hypoxia, 'di ba? Kung if there is decreased oxygen in the tissue, it will be detected by your kidneys and will produce more EPO and inappropriate renal disease. Yep. So, syempre gusto kong memorize yung class, yung primary polycythemia vera that has decreased EPO. Secondary is increased EPO, relative normal EPO. Next class. Primary myelofibrosis tayo. Ang rami ng pangalan. Myelofibrosis na lang tayo. So, sabi niya, fibrotic. Myelofibrosis. Hopefully, sa Hema 1 class, naalala niyo itong myelofibrosis. If your bone marrow has a lot of connective tissue inside it, class, the effect of myelofibrosis is the overcrowding of connective tissues. Yan. Tapos, guys, dun sa overcrowding na to, your red blood cells tends to squeeze out in your bone marrow, squeezing out. So, expect na meron tayong nahanap na teardrop cells. Diba? Nalala nyo, guys? Ayan. So, due to myelofibrosis, ito na yun. Grabe. Chronic myeloproliferative disorder para ang um, myelofibrosis. So, megakaryocytic and granulocytic hyperplasia in the bone marrow, but leads to pancytopenia. So, eventually, nung una class, mataas ang mga megakaryocytes, granulocytes, yan. But eventually, the connective tissues will proliferate uncontrollably, so it will overcrowd your bone marrow, and now there will be no space for normal cells. So, pause. It's that's its cause kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng myelofibrosis because of increase in defective platelet dysplastic megakaryopoiesis. So nagsimula siya. Just wait. Sorry. So it starts with a defective platelets. So here, yan. So may mutation ulit tayo sa may JAK V61F mutation. So this one will create JAK2 kinase. So it will stimulate your thrombopoietin receptor. So it will stimulate your EPO and TPO will form increased platelets. So these platelets are defective, which produces platelet-derived growth factor. Platelet-derived growth factor. Ano namang function na tong platelet-derived growth factor? It does not allow your platelet to grow, but it allows the growth of fibroblasts. Yan. Which eventually, this fibroblasts will produce connective tissues, which will eventually become the demise of your bone marrow na magiging fibrotic na yung bone marrow. So dahil ito sa platelets natin nag-produce ng platelet-derived growth factor, and this growth factor will allow the proliferation of fibroblasts. So yung fibroblasts na to, it will form fibrosis. Dapat itong PDGF, it should be secreted in the site of cell injury. Yan. Para mag-proliferate ang fibroblast, doon yan isa-secrete yung mga fiber, connective tissue para mag-repair kung saan mang sugat natin. Ganyan. Pero apparently, yung PDGF sa loob ng bone marrow, guys, wala namang injury doon. So, ayun, naging fibrotic yung bone marrow. Galing, no? Love it. I love it. So, in your, I just want you to, I just want to differentiate. So, meron tayong early stage at late stage. Nung early stage pa siya, class increase pa yung mga cells mo, mas lalo na yung platelets. But in the late stage, so due to the overcrowding of the connective tissue, nagkaroon ka na ng pancytopenia. Early stage, you have atypical megakaryocytes. So, abnormal yung mga platelets mo. In the late stage class, syempre, nung napuno na ng connective tissue yung bone marrow mo, nagkaroon ka na ng teardrop cells. Teardrop cells. So, you cannot find a teardrop cells on the early stage kasi wala pang, wala pang mga fibers nun. Next, increase blood your BUA and LDH kasi pan-myelosis pa, increase pa yung your cell turnover. Pero nung class pancytopenia na, if you're going to do a bone marrow aspirate, if you want to do a bone marrow biopsy, like in this image here, it will be a dry tap. Ibig sabihin, it will be unsuccessful. Wala ka nang makukuha. Wala makuha ang dugo. Class, why? Because it's all fiber. Yan. So notice here in this image, yan yung needle. So it's hitting the superior iliac crest. And dyan kumukuha ng bone marrow biopsy. So dapat expect mo bone marrow biopsy, dapat may lumabas na dugo kasi nga blood yung andun eh. But since we have myelofibrosis, it's already a dry top. Kung baga, tuyot. Yan, walang makuha due to the excess growth of fibers, connective tissue. Yan. DAC2, V617F, mutation pa rin. And finally, guys, yan, in the realm of chronic myeloproliferative disorders, we have essential or primary thrombocytosis or thrombocythemia. Mali ako, class. Cythemia yan. Okay. So, platelet will be as high as 1,000 times 10 raised to 9 per liter. Di ba ang normal class 200 to 400,000? It can be as high as 1,000. So, class in aggregation study is expect na it won't aggregate in the presence of the epinephrine, bleeding time prolonged. PTA, PTT kaya? Prolonged normal. Wala namang effect wala namang anong coagulation factors dito. So, yun. May mutation siya sa JAK2. So, same rin class. So, JAK2 kinase. Sabi nga, may napad akong video, ang tawag na si JAK2, it's a jackass. Yan, because it can cause this disorders which can be cancer eventually. Pero yung CML class, cancer talaga yun. Next. So, it will stimulate your TPO receptor, increase platelet production, and result to thrombocytosis and bleeding. So, class, kahit po na marami kang platelets, yan, they are defective, so they are functionally incompetent, it will result to bleeding. And since you have high thrombocytes, mataas ang mga platelet mo, it can thrombocytosis or thrombosis. Parang thrombosis dapat ata yun, guys. Yan, thrombosis. And yan. So just like your polycythemia vera, expect a decrease in TPO. That's the absolute primary thrombocytosis or essential. Decrease ang TPO niya due to negative feedback mechanism. And dito na tayo. I'll cut my discussion here. So mamaya I'll continue it again para mas madaling manood para sa inyo. Okay. Stop share. Stop